Departure 1. The passage into the afterlife is not necessarily painful. During my earthly life, I had seen many people cross over into the spirit world. I had had the opportunity to observe with my own physical eyes the struggle that takes place when the spirit seeks to free itself from the body once and for all. A few days before I died, I had a premonition that my days on earth were coming to an end. As I lay in bed, my mind felt heavy, something like a drowsiness. Many times I had the sensation of floating far away into the air and then gently returning. Undoubtedly, during these periods, those concerned for my physical well-being had the impression that, if I wasn't quite dead, I was at least slipping away rapidly. Suddenly, I felt a strong urge to get up. I had no physical sensation. It was very much like being in a dream, but my mind was awake, even though most of my body seemed to contradict that state. As soon as I had this clear urge to get up, I realized that was, in fact, what I was doing. I then discovered that those gathered around my bed didn't seem to notice my movements, since they made no attempt to help me, nor did they try in any way to hold me back. As I turned, I realized what had happened. I saw my physical body lying lifeless on the bed, but I, my true self, was there, alive and well. I could still see the room around me clearly, but it was as if there were a haze, as if thick smoke were filling the entire place. I looked down at myself, wondering what I was supposed to be wearing, since I had obviously gotten out of a bed where I'd been lying sick and was therefore not in a condition to go very far. I was therefore extremely surprised to discover that I was wearing my usual clothes, the ones I normally wore at home. The knowledge of the spiritual world that I had been able to acquire through my experiences immediately came to my aid. I immediately realized the change in my condition. In other words, I knew I was dead. However, I also knew that I was actually alive, that I had been freed from my latest illness, and that I was now there, taking stock of the situation, joined by a friend. Shortly after spending this brief time coming to terms with my new reality, I was joined by an old acquaintance of mine, a priest who had passed away a few years earlier. We greeted each other cordially. At first, I let him do the talking. I still had to get used to the novelty of my condition. You must remember that I had just left a bed as a seriously ill patient and that, in ridding myself of my physical body, I had also rid myself of my illness. The new sensation of well-being and freedom from physical ailments was so overwhelming that it took me a little while to fully comprehend it. My old friend seemed to understand right away what my level of understanding was, that is, that I was aware I had passed into that dimension and that everything was fine. My friend then said that since we no longer needed to stay in that place, we could leave, and he would take me to a very beautiful place prepared for me. He referred to a place, but was quick to explain that we were actually going somewhere where I would feel immediately at ease. I couldn't resist the urge to turn around and take one last look at the room where I had passed away. It still had that misty atmosphere. The people who had been around the bed earlier were gone, and I was able to approach the bed to look at myself. I wasn't at all impressed by what I saw, because what remained of my physical reality looked peaceful. My friend said we could go, and this time we moved together. As we set off, the room gradually became more misty until it slowly faded from my view. Up until that point, I had been using my legs as usual, walking normally, but because of my recent illness, and the fact that I would consequently need some time to rest before I could exert myself more intensely, my friend told me it would be better not to use that traditional means of locomotion. He therefore asked me to hold on tightly to his arm and not to be afraid at all. I could, if I wished, close my eyes. I grabbed his arm and immediately experienced the sensation of floating in the air as happens in dreams. However, what was happening to me was very real and completely free of any doubt regarding my personal safety. The speed seemed to increase as time went on, and I kept my eyes tightly closed. It's strange how resolutely one can do these things here,